My name is Lucas Hayes. I'm 44 years old. I never saw it coming. I thought I knew everything about my wife, Natalie, how she smiled when she was happy, how she hated mornings, and how we'd built a life together, step by step. But nothing could prepare me for the day I found out she was hiding a secret life. The betrayal hit me harder than anything I've ever felt, and the man she was seeing? He was closer than I ever imagined. This isn't just a story of infidelity. It's a tale of revenge, revelation, and the shocking truth that no one saw coming. Let me take you on a journey you won't forget. I've been with my wife Natalie for over 11 years. We don't have kids, by choice at first, then by circumstance. But that never bothered me. It was always just the two of us against the world, and honestly, I used to think that was enough. Looking back now, I realize how many red flags I missed. How many signs were right in front of me, quietly waving while I kept telling myself, we're fine. We're happy. We're solid. About 2 years ago, everything started to change. I'd gone in for a routine blood test after feeling constantly sluggish. My doctor sat me down and didn't mince words. My blood sugar levels were climbing, my cholesterol was bad, and I was one cheeseburger away from diabetes and hypertension. It scared the hell out of me. When I told Natalie, she didn't say much at first. But that night, she came into the kitchen with a determined look and said, "We start tomorrow. Diet, gym, everything." It was one of the moments I still hold on to, stupid as that sounds. She was all in with me, like she always used to be. We threw out the junk food, stocked up on vegetables and lean meat, downloaded fitness apps, and joined a gym that had a good afternoon slot available for both of us. For the first time in a long while, we were doing something together. Side by side, sweating, laughing, sometimes groaning through workouts. I went from 258 pounds down to 187. Natalie dropped from 183 to a lean 143. We looked good. We felt even better. And people noticed. Especially men. Natalie's always been attractive, even when we were heavier. She's got that kind of beauty that doesn't depend on weight. But now, with her new figure, flat stomach, toned legs, and a confidence that radiated from every step, she was magnetic. Guys would turn their heads. And for a while, I was proud. She was my wife, and I was proud to stand beside her. But there was one man who noticed her a little too much, and one day, I realized she was noticing him too. Travis. He was the gym's poster boy, literally. His picture was on their website, flexing like a Greek statue. He was the afternoon trainer, always around when we were working out. Early 30s, jacked, always wearing sleeveless shirts to show off his biceps, always smirking. The kind of guy I never liked on sight, mostly because he reminded me of every jock who used to shove me in high school hallways. At first, it was small things. I'd catch him glancing at Natalie during stretches. Once or twice, he'd casually walk by when she was on the leg press. He called everyone buddy, but when he spoke to Natalie, his voice dipped just slightly. His smile lingered just a bit too long. One afternoon, it happened. We were on the ellipticals, side by side like always. In front of us was the cable machine, and Travis was working out shirtless. He was doing those damn cable crossovers, pecs popping with every rep. I rolled my eyes and turned to Natalie with a smirk, ready to make a joke about his peacocking. But then I saw her. She was staring. Her lips were parted. Then, God help me, she wet them. I froze. I didn't say anything right away. My chest felt like it had been hit with a medicine ball. We drove home in silence. I tried to brush it off, convince myself I was overthinking, but I couldn't let it go. So, halfway through the drive, I said, "Travis really enjoys showing off, doesn't he?" She blinked, looking out the window. "Huh. At the gym. Today. Shirtless. Again. Oh, I didn't notice." "Didn't notice?" I said, forcing a laugh. "You were staring." She paused. "I don't remember. Maybe I was thinking about something else." I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to. But something had shifted. I felt it in my gut. The next week, I saw her talking to him more. Laughing. Once, I caught her brushing her hair back while he adjusted her posture during a lunge set. He put his hands on her waist, and she didn't flinch. She didn't back away. She smiled. I stormed over. "I got it from here," I said, not hiding the anger in my voice. Travis raised his hands like I was some wounded animal. "No problem, buddy. Don't call me that." He smirked and walked off. Natalie looked at me like I'd just embarrassed her in front of the whole gym. "Oh my God, Lucas," she hissed. "Really? We'll talk at home," I said. That night was the beginning of the unraveling. I accused her, maybe too bluntly, of letting him cross lines. She accused me of being jealous and immature. I told her I saw the way she looked at him. She said she was just being polite. I suggested switching gyms. She agreed, but not before making it clear she wasn't happy about it. I feel like you don't trust me, she said bitterly. Should I? I replied. She didn't answer. And that silence, that pause, it echoed louder than any argument we'd ever had. I should have seen it then. I should have known what was coming. But denial is a hell of a drug. And I was still high on the memory of who we used to be. After we switched gyms, something inside Natalie shifted. At first, I thought it was just lingering resentment. She didn't complain outright, but her energy was different, colder. The playful tone in her voice disappeared. The affectionate touches faded. I kept telling myself it was just temporary, that she'd come around eventually. But weeks went by, and the gap between us only widened. We now had separate gym schedules. I took a morning slot to fit around a new opportunity at work, a big project that required afternoon hours. Natalie stayed with afternoons. It made sense logistically, but emotionally, it drove a wedge between us. Without our gym time together, we lost the one shared activity that had kept us feeling like a team. And in that new space, resentment festered like a wound left untreated. I still texted her every day. Memes, little updates about my day, the occasional "I miss you." But her responses became robotic. Yes. Same here. Okay. It was like texting a stranger. Then the intimacy stopped completely. I would reach for her in bed, and she'd pull away, mumbling that she was tired or not in the mood. At first, I respected it. Maybe she really was tired. But it became a pattern. And when weeks turned into months, I couldn't pretend it wasn't deliberate anymore. I started spiraling. I suggested couples therapy, desperate to understand what was happening between us. Her reply was venomous. You're the one with trust issues. Maybe you need therapy. And I went. I went every week, trying to fix myself, trying to silence the voice in my head whispering that I wasn't good enough for her anymore. That Travis had something I didn't. That maybe I'd pushed her away with my jealousy. I wanted to believe that it was my fault, because if it was, then I could fix it. But Natalie never changed. She never tried. She never joined a session, never asked how therapy was going. She withdrew from me completely. She stopped touching me. She stopped laughing with me. She stopped seeing me. And yet, I couldn't find any proof. I checked her phone. I admit it. Desperation made me cross boundaries I never thought I would. But all I found were gym schedules, work messages, and shopping lists. No secret texts. No second phone. I even checked her map history. It showed nothing but home, work, gym, and back again. If she was hiding something, she was damn good at it. Then one day, I had a conversation that changed everything. I was coming home from work, passing the security booth at our condo, when Mr. Palmer, the friendly, chatty guard, greeted me like usual. He was rubbing his shoulder, wincing a bit. You okay? I asked. Yeah, he said. Had to move a heavy sofa yesterday. Your wife's guest looked like he knew what he was doing, though. Strong hands. Maybe you can book him too. He gave her a massage. I froze. What guest? The guy who came by yesterday. Tall, muscular, said he was a masseur. I tried to stay composed, but I could feel my skin turning cold. You wouldn't happen to have a video of that, would you? He gave me a puzzled look, then nodded. Yeah, hang on. He showed me the clip on his phone, casually scrolling like it was no big deal. And there he was, Travis, standing at my front door like he owned the place, ringing the bell with a towel slung over his shoulder. I felt like the ground had opened beneath me. I thanked Mr. Palmer, then told my boss I needed to take the day off. I couldn't sit at a desk while my world was unraveling. I borrowed my coworker's car that afternoon and followed Natalie. She parked at the same mall near our old gym. And there he was, Travis, waiting for her outside. They didn't see me, but I saw everything. The way she smiled at him. The way they hugged. The kiss. The casual way he touched the small of her back as they walked side by side like a couple. They turned a corner and entered a residential neighborhood. I tried to follow them on foot, phone in hand to record everything, but a security guard at the gate stopped me. Can I help you? He asked. I was just admiring that couple who walked in. I replied, trying to act casual. Oh, the newlyweds, he said with a grin. They come by often. Newlyweds. I nearly vomited. I called Natalie's phone. No answer. I returned to the mall parking lot and found her car still there. Her gym bag was in the back seat, untouched. I called again and heard her phone ringing inside the car. She hadn't been to the gym in months. I went home, numb, and called my father. He answered on the first ring, and I broke down. He listened quietly, then said firmly, "You need to gather evidence. I'll call my friend. He's one of the best divorce lawyers in the state." That night, Natalie finally called me back. I answered with as much calm as I could fake. "I'm already home," I said. "Just got back from the gym," she chirped. "My back is killing me." "I bet it is." She walked in smiling, then stopped when she saw my face. "You okay? You've been crying." "I think I caught something," I said, forcing a smile. "I left work early. Gonna sleep in the spare room tonight." She nodded, then scrolled her phone, giggling softly under her breath. Probably texting him. I laid in the spare bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to her laughter through the wall. And in that moment, I knew my wife was gone. But I wasn't going down without the truth. I tried to hold it together. I really did. But there comes a point when your gut won't shut up, when every tiny detail starts feeling like part of a bigger, uglier truth you're not ready to face. One evening, I was getting home late from work. The sky had already turned dark, and the parking lot was nearly empty except for the flicker of a single light above the guard post. Mr. Ellis, the security guard who'd manned our building for years, waved at me as I walked by. I nodded, half absent, lost in my own thoughts. "Hey, Lucas," he called out casually. "Haven't seen that gym guy around lately." "What was his name?" "Travis, right?" I stopped dead in my tracks. "What do you mean?" I asked, trying to keep my tone level. "Oh," he said, leaning back in his chair, completely unaware he was about to shatter what was left of my sanity. "He used to come by every now and then. Real polite guy. Said he was giving your wife massages to help with a back issue. Didn't think much of it. Seemed like a trainer doing his job." Massages? Travis had never been to our apartment when we were still working out together. Natalie had never mentioned needing treatment. She wasn't injured, and if she was, why the hell wouldn't she say anything to me? I thanked Mr. Ellis, walked away calmly, but inside, I was already burning alive. My mind replayed every late workout, every cold shoulder, every half smile she gave me when I tried to connect. She had lied, not just in words, but in routine, in habit, in all the quiet little ways that infidelity carves itself into a relationship without leaving bruises you can point to. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling for hours, rehearsing conversations in my head. I wanted to confront her, but something told me, don't talk yet. Watch. The next day, I took a sick day from work and borrowed a friend's car so Natalie wouldn't recognize it. I parked a block away from her gym and waited. At 3:42 p.m., she arrived. I watched her adjust her hair in the rearview mirror before getting out. She wore tight leggings, a loose crop top, and that gym bag I hadn't seen her use in weeks. 10 minutes later, Travis pulled up. They didn't enter the gym. Instead, they crossed the street, walked toward a nearby coffee shop, and disappeared into the alley behind it. I followed on foot, heart pounding like a war drum. They weren't careful. They didn't need to be. She thought I was at work. When I rounded the corner, I saw them standing at the back entrance of a small apartment building. He touched her waist. She laughed. And then, he kissed her. Not a peck. Not an accident. A slow, practiced, intimate kiss. She didn't pull away. She kissed him back. My whole body went numb. It felt like time slowed, like the world tilted sideways, and I was the only one standing upright. For a moment, I just stood there, frozen in disbelief, watching the woman I had built my life with melt into another man's arms like I never existed. Then they disappeared inside. I didn't follow. I couldn't. Instead, I walked back to the car and sat in silence, fists clenched so tightly I could feel my nails digging into my palms. I wasn't even angry yet. I was hollow. Everything suddenly made sense. The late gym sessions, the emotional distance, the fake fatigue, the lifeless bedroom. She had replaced me. Not officially, not out loud, but in every way that counted. And she didn't even have the decency to end it. She just let me rot in place while she lived a second life behind my back. I went home before she did that night. When she walked through the door, smiling faintly like nothing had happened, I almost told her right then. Almost. But I held back. Because I wasn't going to lose my mind over this. No, I was going to gather proof. And when I had enough, I was going to burn her lies to the ground. The next day, I took off work and borrowed a friend's car, an old gray sedan with tinted windows. I didn't want Natalie to recognize me if she happened to look over her shoulder. I wasn't sure what I was looking for, exactly. Maybe just some kind of closure. Maybe a way to prove that I wasn't crazy. That my gut, the thing I'd ignored for too long, had been right all along. She left the apartment just before 2:30 p.m., dressed in her usual gym gear, black leggings, tank top, a hoodie tied around her waist. The same outfit she always wore when she said she was hitting leg day hard. I followed from a distance, my pulse racing with every turn she made, my hands sweating against the steering wheel. But she didn't go to the gym. She drove across town, pulled into a parking lot next to a small boutique cafe nestled between an art store and a yoga studio. The kind of place that sold overpriced lattes and gluten-free muffins. Not exactly a post-workout spot. I parked across the street and watched. 10 minutes passed. Then 15. At 2:50, he showed up. Travis. He walked up casually, like he'd done this 100 times before. No looking over his shoulder. No hesitation. Just a man meeting a woman he knew intimately. And when Natalie saw him, she lit up. Smiled in that soft, slightly flirty way that I hadn't seen directed at me in months. They hugged. But not the friendly, polite kind of hug. No, this one lingered. His hand slid a little too low on her back. Her fingers curled slightly around his shirt. It wasn't affection. It was possession. A quiet declaration of something far more intimate than coffee. I grabbed my phone and started recording. They sat outside at a corner table, shielded slightly by a row of potted plants and an umbrella. I zoomed in and took pictures. Her laughing at something he said. Him leaning in, whispering. At one point, her hand brushed his thigh. He didn't flinch. He smiled. They looked comfortable. Too comfortable. I couldn't breathe. My lungs felt like they'd been locked in a vice. There it was, right in front of me, the proof I'd been trying not to find. They weren't nervous. They weren't afraid of getting caught. They'd done this before. Many times. This wasn't a mistake. This was a routine. At one point, Travis pulled out his phone and showed her something. She laughed and playfully slapped his arm. Then she reached over and tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. Her, I want to look good for you move. I'd seen her do it on our second date. And again on our wedding day. Now she was doing it for him. 30 minutes later, they got up and walked off together, holding hands like a couple out on a weekend date. My heart dropped into my stomach. I followed. They strolled down the block like they owned the world, like their betrayal wasn't a secret. They just didn't care. Natalie kept glancing up at him with that look. That look that used to be mine. 2 blocks later, they turned into a residential complex, modern, upscale, gated. I parked a few spaces down and watched as Travis entered a code at the front. She leaned into him, her hand resting on his chest while they waited for the gate to buzz. Then they were gone. I didn't follow them in. I didn't need to. I sat there in stunned silence, gripping the wheel like it could hold me together. My ears were ringing. My chest felt hollow. Everything, the marriage, the promises, the shared dreams, had just collapsed in broad daylight, right in front of me. What hurt the most wasn't just the cheating. It was the ease of it, the casual rhythm of it. Like they'd been living this second life for months while I was back home wondering why she didn't want to kiss me goodnight. There was no hesitation in her steps, no guilt in her eyes, and that killed me more than anything else. I stayed parked outside for over an hour, just staring at that gate, half hoping she'd walk out and see me, to have it out right there, to scream, cry something. But I knew that moment would come. Just not yet. I wasn't ready. Not until I had everything I needed. So I drove home. But I wasn't done. Now, it wasn't about catching her. It was about understanding how deep it went. When did it start? How long had I been the backup plan? The invisible man? I was going to find out. Every message. Every lie. If they thought I was going to sit quietly and let them steal my life from me, they had no idea who they were dealing with. I couldn't sleep that night. Natalie lay next to me, her breathing soft and steady, as if nothing had happened. As if she hadn't just spent the afternoon laughing over coffee with the man she was secretly sleeping with. I stared at the ceiling, numb. It was like living with a stranger. A stranger who wore my wife's face and knew exactly how to make me believe everything was fine. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I wasn't ready to explode. I needed more. Real proof. Words. Something I could show, not just feel. I wanted to dig through her lies and pull out every filthy secret she'd tried to bury. That's when I remembered something important. Her Apple ID. Months ago, Natalie had synced her iPhone to my laptop so she could transfer vacation photos. I still had access to her iCloud. If she hadn't changed her password, I could view her messages from the cloud interface. It was a long shot, but I had to try. At 2 a.m., I slipped out of bed, crept to the living room, opened my laptop, and signed in using her old credentials. She hadn't changed the password. My hands trembled as I clicked through the menus. At first, there was nothing unusual. A few conversations with coworkers, messages from her sister, group chats with gym friends. But then I noticed a name that didn't belong. Samantha, HR. I nearly scrolled past it. But something about the frequency of the messages felt off. Too frequent. Too personal. So I opened the thread, and I felt the bottom drop out of my stomach. Samantha was Travis. The man she was cheating with had disguised himself as a woman in her contacts. Probably so if I ever saw a text pop up, I wouldn't think twice. Clever. Calculated. Cruel. The messages went back months. Can't stop thinking about last night. You looked so damn hot in that black set. Did you delete the pics I sent? Be careful, babe. Lucas still doesn't suspect anything? Every sentence was a knife. I scrolled and scrolled, each message more damning than the last. Screenshots. Selfies. Flirty videos. Jokes at my expense. He still thinks you're going to yoga class. Bet he made you dinner while you were sore from our little cardio session. I wanted to scream, to throw the laptop across the room. But instead, I started saving everything. Every message, every photo, every timestamp. I created a folder labeled Truth. I wasn't going to confront her with rage. I was going to bury her with facts. What gutted me the most weren't even the sexual exchanges. It was the emotional intimacy. The way she opened up to him, told him things about me, shared her frustrations, her boredom, her cold detachment, like I was some distant burden she had to tolerate. She once wrote, "He's trying so hard lately. Cooking, compliments, being extra affectionate. I almost feel guilty. Almost. That single word lodged itself in my throat like a splinter. That was all I was worth to her. Almost enough guilt to stop. But not quite. At 4:30 a.m., I shut the laptop and sat in the dark. I had what I needed now. The mask had fully slipped. My wife, Natalie, was no longer a mystery. She was a liar. A manipulator. Someone who had looked me in the eyes day after day, kissed me goodnight, and then snuck off to another man's arms without hesitation. But I wasn't going to let her walk away unscathed. No, I was going to take every word she'd typed, every smile she'd sent, every betrayal she thought she'd buried in the cloud, and I was going to use it. Because now it was war, and I was done playing the fool. The next morning, I didn't say a word to her. Natalie moved around the kitchen like everything was normal, like she wasn't living a double life under the same roof as me. She hummed while she made her coffee, scrolled her phone, smiled to herself at something on the screen. Probably a text from him. I sat at the table, pretending to read emails while I watched her. My knuckles turned white as I gripped my mug. The woman I had trusted with my entire soul had been betraying me for months, and now that I knew the truth, the game was different. She wasn't just cheating, she was comfortable, confident. She thought she had me completely fooled. I told her I had to leave town the next day for a 2-day business retreat. I made up some boring seminar across state lines and even tossed in a fake hotel booking confirmation to make it believable. She didn't question a thing, just smiled sweetly, kissed my cheek, and said, "Drive safe, baby." I wanted to laugh in her face, but I didn't. I played along. Let her believe I was the same clueless husband she'd been mocking in her texts with Travis. The next afternoon, I packed a bag, waved goodbye like the perfect little fool, and drove off. But I didn't go far. I circled around the neighborhood and parked 3 blocks away, hidden between 2 RVs. I waited with my phone open, tracking her location through the shared app she'd forgotten we still had. At exactly 2:43 p.m., she pinged back at home. Then, at 3:16 p.m., a black motorcycle pulled into my driveway. Him. Even from a distance, I recognized the arrogant posture, the gym rat tank top, the smug walk up to my front door. Travis. He had the audacity to wave at the neighbor like he belonged here. I waited 15 minutes, just long enough for them to feel safe, to get comfortable. Then I made my move. I walked back through the alley and used the spare key hidden under the potted plant, the same one she once told me we should move in case someone ever tried to break in. I guess she didn't think I would use it. As soon as I stepped inside, I heard them. Laughter. Muffled voices. The low creak of our bed frame. Our damn bed. My breath caught in my throat. My pulse thundered in my ears as I crept up the stairs like a thief in my own home. I paused outside the bedroom door, which they'd carelessly left ajar. And there they were. Natalie in red lace lingerie I hadn't seen since our honeymoon. Travis shirtless, his hands all over her. She was giggling, her fingers tracing the lines of his abs like a scene straight out of some trashy movie. Except this wasn't fiction. This was real. This was my life. I took a deep breath, then pushed the door open wide. They both froze. Natalie's face went pale. Travis's mouth dropped open. Neither of them moved. For a full 5 seconds, we just stared at each other. 3 people in one room, but only 2 of them caught red-handed. I held up my phone, still recording. Smile? I said coldly. You're on camera. Lucas. Wait. I can explain. Natalie stammered, clutching the blanket around her like modesty still mattered. Explain? I laughed, an ugly, bitter sound. What exactly are you planning to explain? The weeks of lies? The text messages? Or the fact that you brought him into my bed? Travis stood up, hands raised like he thought I was about to attack. Hey, man, listen, I didn't know. Didn't know what? I snapped. That she was married? You've been to this house. You've seen the wedding photos on the damn wall. Don't play stupid now. Natalie tried to step forward, her voice trembling. Lucas, please, let's just talk. We can fix this. No, you broke this. I cut her off. And now you get to live with the pieces. I turned, walked out, and slammed the door behind me. I didn't need to hear another word. The silence as I walked away told me everything I needed to know. She didn't chase me. He didn't try to stop me. Because deep down, they both knew they'd already lost. And I was done being the one left in the dark. The next day felt like I was floating through a bad dream. Natalie acted like everything was normal. She joked about the weather, sent me a meme over breakfast, even offered to pack me lunch, like we were still some happy, loving couple. Like she hadn't spent the previous afternoon in bed with Travis, in the same house where we exchanged vows and built a life together. I smiled, played along, but inside I was boiling, not just with anger, but with precision, because now I had everything I needed. Photos, messages, video, and a plan. I wasn't going to scream at her. That would be too easy, too messy. No, I wanted her to feel what I'd felt. The slow unraveling, the bottom falling out. I wanted her to watch everything collapse. So I started preparing. That evening, while she was in the shower, I copied all the evidence, screenshots of their texts, photos from the cafe, and even the brief video of them embracing, onto a USB stick. I labeled it with one word, truth. Then I opened our shared desktop computer, the one we used for Netflix and bills, and I set the USB to autoplay the evidence the moment it was plugged in. It would open a slideshow of betrayal, frame by frame, message by message. No way to deny it. No room for explanations. I also wrote a note. Simple. Cold. You lied. You cheated. You destroyed us. Here's everything you tried to hide. I'm done. I folded the note and slid it into an envelope. Sealed it with shaking hands. I didn't cry. Not this time. I was past tears. The next morning, I told her I had a last-minute meeting across town and would be gone all day. She barely reacted, just nodded and reminded me to grab my keys. I stared at her for a moment longer than usual, trying to remember how I'd ever fallen in love with her, trying to reconcile this woman in front of me with the memory of the one I married. But there was nothing left to recognize. She kissed me on the cheek, said, "Love you." I forced a smile. "You too." Then I left. I drove around the block and parked on a quiet street with a view of our front door. From the glove box, I pulled out the USB and the envelope, placed them both on the kitchen counter before I'd left. Everything was ready. At 1:48 p.m., the same time as always, Travis's bike rolled up. He didn't knock. He had a key now, probably one she gave him while I was at work, trusting he'd never need to use it when I was home. I watched him disappear inside my house. 10 minutes later, I called the house phone from a burner I'd bought the day before. Just once. Enough to make sure she knew I was out of the picture. Then I waited. It took 45 minutes. At 2:37 p.m., the front door slammed open. Natalie came stumbling out barefoot, clutching the USB in one hand, the envelope crumpled in the other. Her face was pale, eyes wide, mouth open like she'd seen a ghost. Travis followed behind her, shirtless and confused, looking around like he thought I might pop out from the bushes. I didn't. I stayed in the car, far enough away that they couldn't see me, but close enough to watch. She was yelling. I couldn't hear the words, but I knew the sound. Panic, desperation, anger. Not remorse. Not guilt. Just fear of being exposed. He grabbed her arm, and she ripped it away. She stormed back inside. I knew what she saw on that screen. Every message. Every photo. My note. The reality she thought she'd hidden so well had just been thrown in her face, with timestamps and receipts. No more secrets. No more lies. And me? I didn't go home that night. I didn't answer her calls, her texts, or the desperate voicemails that followed. She had spent months making me feel invisible. Now it was her turn to feel the silence. Tomorrow, I'd talk to a lawyer. I'd file for divorce. I'd be done playing the fool. But today, I was finally in control again. I parked 2 blocks from the house and waited. The morning sun was starting to rise higher, casting a soft glow across the street. Birds chirped. Kids rode their bikes past me like nothing was wrong. But everything was wrong. Everything had been wrong for months. I just hadn't known how deep the rot had gone until now. At exactly 11:12 a.m., Travis pulled up on his motorcycle. I watched from my car, heart pounding, palms sweating against the steering wheel. He was wearing that smug, tight-fitting t-shirt, flexing like he always did, even when no one was watching. He didn't hesitate, just strolled up the driveway like he owned it, like I had never existed. Natalie opened the door in leggings and a crop top, laughing at something he said. She reached out, touched his arm, pulled him inside. My hands clenched so hard the steering wheel creaked. But I didn't move. Not yet. Inside the house, the slideshow was ready. The note was waiting. And the trap was set. At 11:43 a.m., I walked back into my home. Our home, for the last time. I didn't knock. I didn't shout. I just opened the door and stepped inside like I still belonged there. The silence was heavy. Then I heard them, upstairs. Muffled voices. Laughter. The creak of our bed. I didn't go up. Instead, I walked calmly into the living room, where the computer sat on the desk. I plugged in the USB marked Truth, took out the envelope with my note, and propped it against the keyboard. Then I turned the volume up, loud, and pressed play. The first photo appeared, Natalie and Travis holding hands at the cafe. The next, her brushing his thigh under the table. Then, the messages. Did you delete the pics I sent? Luke is still clueless? That body of yours addictive. Each line stabbed like a knife, but I didn't flinch. I wasn't there to feel. I was there to finish this. Upstairs, I heard the shift. Silence. Then footsteps, quick ones. Natalie came rushing down, barefoot, hair a mess, eyes wide. She froze when she saw me. Then her eyes flicked to the screen, where a message from Travis filled the frame. Wish you could sneak away tonight. I hate when you have to go home to that loser. Her face drained of color. Lucas, she whispered. I can explain. No, Natalie, I said, calm and cold. You can't. Behind her, Travis appeared at the top of the stairs, shirtless, confused. I looked up at him. For a second, he didn't know what to do. Then he grinned, like this was just a joke. What's up, man? You home early. I stared at him with the same expressionless face I'd perfected in the last few days. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Instead, I pulled out a manila envelope from my bag and tossed it on the coffee table. Inside were the divorce papers, signed and dated. Natalie blinked. What is this? It's over, I said, locking eyes with her. You chose him. You betrayed me in my house, in my bed. This is your consequence. She started crying, begging, saying it was a mistake, that she'd been confused, that it just happened. But I'd heard enough lies to last a lifetime. I turned and walked toward the door. Lucas, please, she cried. Don't leave like this. We can fix it. I paused, hand on the doorknob. Fix it. I echoed. You don't fix betrayal, Natalie. You bury it. And then I walked out. The fresh air hit me like a reset button. For the first time in months, I could breathe. My chest didn't feel tight. My vision was clear. I didn't know what came next, how I'd rebuild or where I'd go, but I knew one thing. I wasn't broken anymore. I was done. Let her sit with the silence. Let her stare at the slideshow, at the proof of her own destruction. Let Travis realize he wasn't a conquest, just a pathetic footnote in the story of her lies. As for me, I walked away with my pride, my dignity, and something they'd never have, peace. The truth had burned everything to the ground, but I was finally free. And now, as everything has come to an end, as I've walked away from the home that was once supposed to be our sanctuary, I finally have the time to reflect, not with anger, but with clarity. I've learned a valuable lesson. Trust is the most precious asset in a marriage. Once it's broken, no matter how much you try to mend it, the cracks remain. If there's one thing I want to share with those who have lived through half a lifetime like I have, it's this: never underestimate your own feelings. Your instincts never lie. Those of us who have sacrificed, believed, and loved, tend to forgive too much, endure too long, simply because we fear loneliness. But sometimes, loneliness is easier than living next to someone who no longer truly cares. Learn to observe, listen, and most importantly, love yourself. Because if you don't protect your own heart, no one else will. And sometimes, letting go isn't failure, it's the beginning of freedom.